Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of the Whitepill. I hope you've had a great start to your week. Hope everyone's in the Christmas spirit. Only, now that it's the next day. Only 2 days out. Well, 1 day from Christmas Eve, anyways. But yeah, hope everyone has had a wonderful winter break so far. Tonight's episode is going to be pivoting a little. This is something that I've covered in the past in the first Canada First episode. Say that 5 times too fast. I did get into a little bit of the legal, or rather judicial system in Canada and some of its faults, but today we're going to go a little bit deeper into that. Before we get started, though, as always, if you want to support the show, always just like, subscribe, watch. Anything helps. Appreciate all the support. But otherwise, if you want to donate and have your donation read on stream, you can find all of that at bio.link/whitepill. First link there is going to be the PayPal link, and do not feel obligated, but if you want to support the stream, that would be a good way to do it. Donations are always right at the end of the stream. Rarely read chat, but let's get into it. Before we get into the many of the blackpilling stories for today, we'll get into something that's actually good. Something that actually happened that was a welcome change. It was Canada's population decreasing for the first time in a major way since COVID. Hats off to the Canadian government for doing something right. I'll give it to them. Their policies seem to be working. Not fast enough, though. Not fast enough. As Canada's population, according to the BBC, has dropped by 76,000 between July and October, which is great. That is a step in the right direction. That is certainly a step in the right direction. Now, if we could just import 10 times as many as they did in that period for a couple of months, years, if that's what it takes, then actually we'll be seeing some progress. We'll actually be seeing some progress. 76K between July and October. I mean, you're talking what? July, August, September. So 4 months, right? If they're even counting the 4 months entirely, of not even 25,000 people. And Canada's population, last I checked, is closer to 40 million now. I always cited the 30 million figure, but that is way outdated. Let's see here. Okay, well, guess dark mode doesn't work. What? Why doesn't this show me the federal? Okay. Is it because I'm using Brave Browser? Okay, there we go. 41 million. Jesus. 41 million people. It used to be 30 for the longest time. Growing up, that's the figure that you would cite. We had 30 and America had 300. And if we could just get rid of 100,000 people every month for a couple of years, yeah, that'd be great. That would unironically be great. Because the youth unemployment rate would dip to its lowest levels since early 2000s, maybe even before then. Wouldn't have to deal with as many issues regarding language barriers or truck drivers or driving accidents or people breaking into homes. This is a no-brainer. Canada, if you could take any lesson from listening to this show, Canada used to be one way, and now it's a different way. And one of the biggest changes, if we're just looking at changes, right, ignoring the right-wing aligned rhetoric regarding immigration, right? If we're just looking at the changes that Canada's gone through, its population and demographics have fundamentally changed. And you can't just introduce that into a country without any consideration for the consequences of it. I mean, you're injecting a wholly different class of people than those that came out of the country. You're going to have an ideological shift. You're going to have a cultural shift. You're going to have an economic shift. It's only natural. You're literally importing people from different parts of the world that had varying experiences regarding their education, their socialization, their family structure, the jobs that they work at, the skills that they attain. Right? Like there's a fundamental difference between someone going through life in North America versus South America or Africa or Asia or Europe or Oceania, like what have you, on any continent. They're going to be different. And it's not inherently that the difference is what brings all these detriments to society. It's the degree to which they are different and in what ways. Whether they share your religion, whether they share your language, whether they respect certain customs, how they treat the idea of respect, how they treat the idea of honor, of integrity. Right? Those are personal qualifiers unique to each and every individual on the planet. But if you look at it on a big enough scale, that's what a culture is. It's just all of those people holding those ideals, interacting with one another. That's how culture is made. That's how it shifts. And so if we introduce people with ideas that are counterproductive to our existing culture, counterproductive to the culture that built this nation, then you're going to run into problems. This is not even, forget all the political stuff. Just think of it on a humanistic level of what it means to grow up as a person in your region. And when you integrate into a different region, what happens then? To what extent do you actually absorb the things around you? In a quick example, just to kind of tie the story off, it's the same thing as, attending any major institution, whether it's a university, a job you work at, what have you. If enough people are going along with the plan of, show up at this time, do this thing for this many hours, and here's the expected end result, right? There's going to be a common theme. Even the people that go to university that just, fuck around or go to party or whatever, they understand the rules. There are rules of the game that they have to play by, right, in order to fit in. But now we're importing people that don't care for those rules half the time. Whether it's how they attain a job, whether it's their actual adaptation to the culture, right? That's the problem. Like I don't have an issue with minorities existing. No shit. This is Canada. I live in Toronto, the the most globalized city in all of Canada, and one of in North America. If you hate minorities here on like a racial, like a bloodline level, you're gonna drive yourself into an aneurysm, because everywhere in Toronto, every single block you walk, you're gonna hear a different language. That's the way that it's always been for like the longest time, especially in my time. So, hating people on the basis of that, or just hating anyone, it's stupid and it's counterproductive. But understanding that there are going to be fundamental differences between the way that you perceive the world, that you perceive right and wrong with other people, and these other people are coming from a certain landmass, you noticing that it's not a negative thing. It really isn't. Especially if the place that you come from is known for technological innovation, for a strong economy, for a vibrant, growing culture, for a history built on the backs of great men, and obviously great chaos and strife and suffering as well, of course. But that's emblematic to every single continent, every single country. It's funny in North America, we like to think that, like, or at least a subset of the population here likes to think that we are some uniquely evil, maybe race isn't the word for it, but just collective of people. And we're not. Every single continent has seen visions of what we did here, right? Of what Canadian settlers did here. Every single continent has gotten that. Every single one. Every single one has gone through conquest. Every single one has gone through its painful history of slavery. Everything. This is not a uniquely Canadian issue, no matter how people like to point it out. Right? Not the issue of slavery, but how we treated the Indigenous. Or how the Indigenous even treated each other, for that matter. And so just because of that, we have to accept infinity Indians. We have to accept infinity just people from everywhere. We have to accept thousands of people from Gaza because of what? Because of some guilt for the things that happened in the past that have nothing to do with what the world is like today. You know, not to say that they didn't play a role in changing the course of history. Of course it did. But all of those people are basically gone. And we live in a different world now where we don't take kids from their families and force them to go to schooling so they become a permanent servant underclass. We don't do that anymore. The laws have changed. The way that people see other people has changed. But this mentality of like the vengeance, I mean, that's really the only reason that I can think that why immigration is at such a scale in Canada is that the people that hate what built this country, they want to do away with that history by some kind of act of amnesty to people that half the time, maybe even more, like they don't deserve it. Like we're not importing the greatest of people, which is why we're seeing so many incidents of scammers and thieves and auto theft gangs and God knows what else. I mean, all these violent Khalistani protests, and by violent, I mean like they're literally having street fights out in the parking lot. I'm not even joking about that. I will look it up here. Here, Brampton parking lot fight. Hold on. I'm not just talking out of my ass here. There were multiple fights across parking lots in Canada where these Southeast Asian groups, some Indian, would gather and just beat each other with sticks. Hold on. I'm not talking out of my ass. This is not a conspiracy theory. This isn't some shit on 4chan. This actually happened, and multiple times. Like they were actually wielding 2x4s and throwing shit at one another. And that's not a Canadian pastime. We don't just go around doing that, beating each other with fucking giant chunks of wood. We don't do that. That's not a famous historic custom by Canadians. Not an example that we partake in. Well, let's see here. Yeah, of course, no guns and fights. Nobody's gonna bring a gun to a giant crowd fight in Canada. Come on, Grok, what are we doing here? Because if I don't show this example, then I look like an extreme bigot. So I'm I'm depending on Grok here. And even bigot, that word, it gets thrown around so easily these days that if you have a problem with people fighting in a parking lot, that's what you get labeled as. And it's like, to what end? To what end are we going to continue this policing of language? That if you get slapped with this label, oh, now you're ostracized. Now you're no longer part of the in-group. Now you're no longer with us. Jesus Christ, Grok, what is going on? Come on, buddy. Oh, it's actually analyzing the video footage? That's amazing. Oh, wow, look at that. That's great. That's sick. Fighting about what? That's the part that I don't understand. Like, what are they actually fighting about? And you know what? Maybe video footage is hard to, place actually where it is. Fine. Let's look it up. Apologies for the spelling. I'm still getting used to the keyboard. But that's all right. We'll find it. Oh, cool. Rival Eritrean groups. That's nice. Right. The parking clash. The incident took place about 5 p.m. Saturday in a parking lot in Castle Ridge when two groups of what happened to be Eritrean men brandishing sticks, rocks, and bats confronted each other. Now, look, even if it's 10, 15 people, even if it's not like the group of 150 or whatever Grok was looking for, this shit has no place in Canada. Or all the people that are protesting for Palestine going around to Jewish businesses in Canada as if they're the fucking problem. Like, what is a small or even a large business, a chain like Indigo? What do they have to do with the Israeli war? And yet there was a protest just the other day, just like today or yesterday. All these women went and splattered red paint on the doors of it. And there's the Indigo, like a giant one downtown. For what? And then they went in and they started chanting these different chants with giant posters. Is this it? No, this is recording studios. No. That's not what I was looking for. But in any case, taking some big step towards advocating your cause, if that has nothing to do with Canada, has no place here. Has no place here. These protests do absolutely nothing. All it does is it sends a signal as to what your side is for, right? It sends that signal and it just creates chaos. That's all it is, because there's always going to be some kind of opposition. There's always going to be some counter protesters, Antifa, whatever. And it's always just going to end in a clash. Like, these things have no actual point besides just showing the world there is a group of people that believe in this or are willing to show up and be paid for this, and this is how they feel. Right? And that's a good signal to keep an eye on. But at the end of the day, this has no place in Canada, and these things should maybe not shut down, but be absolutely discouraged and looked at with disdain at the least. Because frankly, I have more interest in how the average Canadian is doing than somebody in Gaza or Ukraine or elsewhere. That's not to say that Canada isn't involved in these foreign conflicts one way or another, what side they're funding, what have you. Sure. Sure, that'll definitely be a thing. But to involve average, everyday Canadians, I mean, what is the point? Like, what does the average person just going to work? The average person just working at the cafe shop that's getting protested. What do they have to do with it? I fail to understand what any of us has to do with it. And then they go out in the streets, they protest, they kneel, pray, what have you. To what end? And we shouldn't be tolerating this, because this activity has no place in Canada. It has nothing to do with Canada. It's one thing if we were conscripting people to go fight a war. Like, okay, sure, fair. I understand. I understand the concern there, right? But that's not at all what's happening. Not even close. So anyways, I just started off that story to say it's great that numbers are dropping, but they're not dropping fast enough. And part of the problem, if they're not dropping fast enough, is that if we keep importing people from where they're coming from countries that don't share our ideals, from countries that completely believe in not even like that they don't share our ideals, but their ideals are not in any way congruent with what we believe in terms of how we treat women, how we treat minorities, how we treat the financial system, the judicial system, right? And enough of those people get voting power, then they're going to vote for people that believe in their interests. I mean, there were multiple MPs this election cycle in Canada, where in Toronto, we had multiple candidates running on the fact that they were going to represent people's interests in terms of what's happening in Gaza. Now, it's one thing that you say that you will not kowtow to Israel's influence or Hamas's influence or what have you. Okay, sure. But if you're actually advocating for trying to force policy to change in that way, to say that you're going to be on the side of those people, so that when it comes to a vote on whether we should bring 5,000 of them from that war over here, right, have them sign up for automatic benefits, health benefits, childcare benefits, what have you, right? To get them housing, to put them up in a hotel, because that's what they do. They put them up in hotels, and the taxpayer pays for everything, right? At the end of the day, we're getting fucked. Like, we're getting fucked for a conflict that has nothing to do with Canada. Yes, we're funding it to an extent, of course. But if you want to make an argument against Israeli influence or Israeli government influence, that's very different than saying, I'm going to advocate on your interests on behalf of this conflict. Right? Because then they vote that person in, then they're just as likely to vote to bring these people in. To have more recognition for those people in their culture. And that has no place in Canada. That has absolutely no place in Canada. Because those are not the ideals that built the nation. Those are not the ideals that are fostering the nation. See, and here's how I know that's true. It's not even that you have to have a deep understanding of racial ties and all this math regarding whether or not it fits or not to Canada's westernized culture. Just look at the state of the country. Have we been improving as a result of all this immigration, of this mass migration, of all these asylum claims? I don't really see an improvement. I really don't. If anything, it's been a steady decline, which is only accelerating with each person that comes in. We pay more for shit. It's less safe to go to places, to be of certain faiths, right? Finding a job for the youth is a shot in the dark now. It's nearly impossible. And I've heard it from people that have applied to work where I work right now. Just basic entry-level positions. They just can't get these jobs. They wait for months. And that's the next generation. These are the people that need work experience more than anybody else. And we're fucking them because what? We want to pay Indians less? We want to pay immigrants less? We want to have them beholden to the employer in a way that is parasitic and considered slave-like? And those are my words. That's what the UN said. The UN said that our foreign worker program is akin to modern-day slavery. I'll take my word for it, and fine. Okay, so the UN is, by definition, a globalist entity. Even if you don't take them at their word, what has gotten better in Canada? We're seeing non-stop news stories of food banks running short on food, the demand being the highest it's ever been. Coffee prices just skyrocketed 40% in the last not even 5 years? Fucking coffee. America is in a tumultuous relationship regarding trade. We don't even sell American liquor on our shelves. I mean, how bad does it have to get until people think, let's maybe reconsider some of the steps that we took to get here? And one of those fundamental steps was absolutely maximizing immigration. I mean, Trudeau even said it himself that he wants Canada to be a post-nation state, a post-nationalist state. So a state where, it's no longer about Canada. It's no longer about Canadians. The original Canadians, the settlers. Now it's just about, let's let everyone in and everyone can be a Canadian. We're going to change the definition of what it means to be a Canadian. How's that working out? How's that working out? Pretty fucking bad. Pretty fucking bad. Things are not so great in the Great White North, unfortunately. But no, look, at the end of the day, this is a white pill that 76,000 people have left Canada, right? This is great, but it doesn't go far enough. And like I said, that number needs to be times 10 every single month for years. 4 years. The immigration part of government, right? Whatever that organization, the bureaucracy is called, they need to make a shit list of countries that we do not immigrate people from by any cost, by any means, because they are out there. Okay, they are out there. And anybody who is not a citizen, so permanent resident and below, needs to have their immigration status put into question. Do you come from a Western country? That'll give you extra points. Do you have a job opportunity here, or are you just sitting on collecting benefits? We need a reconsideration, a fundamental restructuring of how immigration is done in Canada. We are not letting in the best and brightest. We are letting in a lot of liabilities, people that are just getting benefits or finding workarounds to existing infrastructure. Right? The Indians, they figured out they could just apply to all these schools, right? These international schools that are really just fucking mail offices. Not even. It's a blank room with a single seat. That's what they found half the time in their investigations, right? There's all these different exploits that people have found to cheat immigration. And enough is a fucking enough. We are literally hurting ourselves. Like I said in the last episode, we are stepping on rakes. We're rake stepping. We're rake stepping all the way till the leaves get raked. And that should concern everybody. It's not about left or right. It's not about any of that. Forget this political divide. The right of Canada might as well just be the left, with some slight disagreements. Because even the right doesn't go far enough here, politically. Right? Isn't the Ontario Party called the Progressive Conservatives? Right? Isn't that what the Federal Party is called? And they're pretty goddamn progressive. In any case, it's a white pill. It's a white pill, but it's a concerning white pill. It's a very concerning white pill. And with that, we'll move on to the next topic, which honestly, let me see if I can pull this article here first, because I think... Oh, yes. Yes, yeah, they did cap some student visa applications as well. Which, good for them. Absolutely. We need to halt immigration and cap the visas and do everything that we can to slow the flow of people. Looks like they plan to add 155,000 international students next year. They also instructed institutions to pause the intake of permanent residency applications for startups and self-employed people as of January the 1st, and that remains until a further notice. Okay. Right on. Absolutely. Slow this down with people. There's too many people. Too many people, not enough resources. And the resources are abundant. It's just they're being steered towards the most retarded and gay shit there is. I mean, I don't mean to be so vulgar, but that is ultimately what is happening. Policies and actions that are fundamentally hurting every single Canadian, especially the people in power. Like they don't realize that. And I'll end off this this topic with this rant. These people don't realize that Trump, right, or Pierre Poilievre, or any of these right-wing people, and Trump and Pierre are not even in the same category, but all of these people that they demonize, they call Pierre the Trump of America, the Trump of the North. They don't understand that these people, because they don't go far enough, right, because Trump is not going as far as he said he would, and Pierre is not doing enough for Canadians, regardless of his loss. I just mean like on the issues that he advocates. There are certain things that he leaves out or he wants to be sensitive to because he wants to pull voters. And I understand that, right? I understand the game that he's playing. But because they're not going far enough, what comes after them, that is the real concern. That should worry everybody. Because if this version of the right wing as it exists right now is not enough for the people and they're willing to go even beyond that, okay, that's when you know, lights and whistles start firing off. That's when the alert should come into people's brains, because at the end of the day, like that figure, whoever's able to capture all of those people who want to go beyond that, right? And the entire umbrella that opens up. Look, don't get me wrong. I agree with it. We absolutely do need a leader that goes beyond the current status of what is considered right wing. But let's not forget just how easily that could teeter into absolute, just total hegemony from top down, an actual fascist dictatorship. Right? Because at the end of the day, there are reasonable people in this movement that just want a better life for themselves, their families, look out for the interests of the nation to make it so that the culture that built this nation continues to grow and live through its people. Right? There are reasonable people in this movement. They're not hateful. Right? They don't hate people just because of their personal identity. They might hate them for their views or have a strong disdain for them. But a good chunk of the people that are involved in this, right, the new right, that they just want a better life. They want a better life for themselves. They want a better life for the people around them, for their communities. And then there's a section of them that have, for one way or another, been ushered out of polite society, whether it's by their own doing or them getting fired or canceled or what have you, that want to take it even further and maybe even burn down the system. And maybe they have extremist views. Right? And that should be a concern for people. That there's going to be people in this movement that are, not anti-Israel, but just completely like the Israelis are lizard people, fucking globalists taking over, like, all that. Right? There's always going to be people that are teetering on the edge that just can't handle the red pill that they take, and they go way too far. Like how Candace Owens is just still going on the Charlie Kirk conspiracy, or she was until she met, what's her name, Erica Kirk, had that secret meeting where lawyers were present. Right now she's changed her tune. But even before that, she was talking about how Brigitte Macron is involved and the beekeepers and like this, like all this crazy shit. Right? There's plenty of people that subscribe to that. QAnon was by far the biggest signal of that. And so that's the area of concern, right? Is that these people are not going far enough, whether it's with immigration or, what have you, economic policy, the intertwining of foreign influences in the local politics. If these people don't go far enough as it is, then whatever the next leader is, the next leader of the right, they might not be so cavalier to kowtow to the people that don't support them, to say the least. Right? They're not going to be looking to get the popular vote. They're looking to be effective with results and have a certain ideological leaning that might go too far. But anyways, that's just a little rant on the immigration part. Once again, it's a white pill that these people are getting the fuck out. Their visas are expiring. They're making room for more people, more Canadians, more young people to get jobs. Love it, but not going far enough. Definitely not far enough. And you know what? I'll leave that story. No, I'm gonna leave that other story for Christmas. There was there were a bunch of thieves that dressed up as Santa and elves. You know what? Here, I'll quickly give this story a run. There were a bunch of thieves in I think it was in Montreal, where they stole $3,000 worth of goods and just ran out the store, and it was all these like Santa Clauses and elves, and they left it all under a tree in the neighborhood, which is amazing. Why isn't there footage of this? Why fucking CBC? Unbelievable. We pay them how many millions of dollars a year, and these people can't even like link a post from Twitter. Jesus Christ. Okay, hold on. No, because you got to see the footage. This is absolutely amazing. Montreal Santa. Here it is. Hell yeah. And look, I'm not condoning thievery and stealing. It's really funny that during the holidays this is what some people decide to do. And it would be one thing if they stole for themselves and we just never saw them ever again. But they stole for the neighborhood and just left it out for people to take. Which, look, at the end of the day, these grocery stores, they have the money. They can take the loss. There's loss prevention departments in every single store, right? They have the money. They're not hurting their bottom line ultimately. But this is just, it's just funny. You don't really see like Robin Hood type crime anymore. You know, it's not really something that happens. But to have this group actually do it, I mean, that's the most Canadian way to steal anything ever. It's not even to take it for yourself. Nope, it's it's to give it to the community. Unbelievable. That's too funny. And also, I mean, I just realized the funnier part of the story is that the security guard didn't do shit. You know, like if the security guard was allowed to carry a gun and just like stood out the front door menacingly, maybe people wouldn't have been so cavalier to do that. But that is amazing nonetheless. Good for them. Good for them. I don't condone stealing, but this is just a funny way to do it. Oh, that's great. Yeah, another white pill. Another white pill before we get into the main topic, which is actually quite fucking distressing. So basically, part of Canada's justice system involves a certain consideration towards people when they commit crimes. And this consideration involves the judge thinking about, or rather taking into account, how someone's upbringing can affect the reason, or rather their actions, for when committing a crime. And in simple terms, basically what it means is if you grew up in a poor neighborhood if you grew up black, if you grew up indigenous, right? Any of these categories that are considered minorities, because of a ruling back in, I think this was the 90s, but I want to be certain here, 1999, right? There was a big case by the name of R versus Glad. And there was a decision of the Supreme Court of Canada concerning the sentencing principles outlined in the Criminal Code. This provision directs courts to consider all available sanctions other than imprisonment for all offenders and to pay particular attention to the circumstances of Aboriginal offenders. So this is kind of when Canada went to shit. Because now, right, federally, from upon high, they dictated to all judges across Canada that could now use this case as precedent to take into consideration the race of people, their status regarding immigration, their historic, the experience of their people throughout history, right? All these different categories that we have virtually no control over, to an extent, right? You can control where you live to an extent, but some people are stuck in that trap, or their family has a history of drug abuse, or they're involved in crime or whatever. I understand that these are considerations that are taken into account when someone is up for sentencing. I understand that this isn't something that you can just dismiss, right? But to force it upon every judge in Canada, and especially pay attention to Aboriginal offenders. I mean, look, once again, just like with what I said about immigration at the beginning of the show, you don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to take an ideological stance. You don't have to take a philosophical stance. Just look at the results. Okay, and here are some of the results. I mean, this treasure trove, for lack of a better word, that I stumbled upon today is nothing but incredible. Right? Because, you would think that judges would do that with somebody that's like, I don't know, stealing bread or committing some kind of soft crime where you're not really hurting anybody, maybe a giant corporation or something, and maybe it's your first offense. No. This ruling is being used in 2025 to justify a completely atrocious and inhumane crimes against people to the point of being involved in when people are sentenced for child porn, which is fucking horrible. Those people should be put in the ground. But here is a compilation, right, of these stories. Last week, a convicted killer in Manitoba was given a jail sentence of just 7 years on the grounds that, as an Indigenous man, he wasn't as guilty as a non-Indigenous offender might have been. And you're wondering, wow, how could that be true? Right? Here's that story. A Manitoba man who stabbed an acquaintance to death in an unprovoked attack over a missing cell phone has seen his prison sentence reduced by a year due to his Indigenous status and because he took his victim to hospital, where the man later died of internal bleeding. Oh. So you took him to the hospital. The guy that you put in the hospital. And you killed over a cell phone. You killed a man over a cell phone. And you got a year less sentence because you're native? Right? And here's some more. This is the judge speaking. Quote, however, I believe that the Glade factors relevant to this offender mitigate his moral culpability. Additionally, The fact that he had made efforts to ensure his victim received medical treatment is also significant. Oh, okay. Taking these two considerations into account, I will impose the jointly recommended sentence of 7 years custody. Cool. So you can get a year off your sentence by being native. All right, well, I know what I'm being tomorrow. I'm going to start self-identifying as Iroquois. Or Mississauga. Or whatever the fuck. Here's some more examples. If stabbing for a cell phone wasn't enough. Black man given reduced drug trafficking offense because of 18th century slavery. Oh. Bringing it back. Going old school with it. Okay. Quote, in August, 52-year-old convicted drug trafficker Frank Paris received a reduced sentence from a Quebec court because his lawyers pleaded that he was an intergenerational survivor of slavery. Whoa, intergenerational, dude. Far out, man. Intergenerational. That's crazy. Yo, that should sound like a transformer. Intergenerational. What the fuck? Are you serious? Because of slavery 200 years ago, this guy gets a lighter sentence? He's literally selling drugs to people. I don't understand what is so difficult about that. And if you think, oh, this is some fucking Yahoo News story, here's the CBC story. If you want a different source, mixed reactions as judge considers a race report in sentencing of a black man, a Quebec first. Whoa. So a white person would get sentenced differently on that crime, right, by default, if they don't have any racial grievances or whatever the fuck. So if that's the case, then I mean, is that not the definition of a two-tier justice system, where regardless of anything that you had control over, if you're born into a certain life, you get a lighter sentencing? I don't understand what sense that could possibly make. I really don't. I really do not. This literally has, and I don't use that word figuratively. I mean it. This actually has no place in a country like Canada. It shouldn't. Well, because somebody called you a slur one time, because you lived in a certain part of town, you get to have a lighter sentence? I don't understand. I really don't. Like, how could this in any way be a consideration that judges take into account? Insane. Yeah, here's the quote from the judge. The court decided to reduce the sentence, which would be 35 months to 24 months. Great. That's awesome. Fucking great. You get years off your sentence or months off your sentence if you are of a different group. Incredible. Cool. All right, so that's one story. Here's another story. A 16-year-old offender with Ojibwe heritage shot and paralyzed a man while on probation for prior violent offenses. Instead of incarceration, the judge imposed probation, applying GLOD principles, which are the principles from that Supreme Court ruling I mentioned earlier, to reduce moral blame due to historical trauma, including his grandparents' residential school experiences, broken family structures, and cultural disconnection. Wow, interesting. And the source is the actual document itself. Let me see if I can find that ruling. Broken family structures. Oh, here it is. Here in the section of the case where it mentions GLOD considerations. In sum, at the time of the offense, you were in a precarious financial situation with no structure or supervision at home and appeared totally lost about your future. You used drugs to get high, triggered by the lack of structure and meaning of your life. Your GLAD report confirms all this, but it also details a young Indigenous youth with extensive trauma, both personal and intergenerational. Your close relatives were victims of Canada's residential schools, which have since been described as instrumental of cultural genocide. Your mother is Ojibwe. Her grandparents attended residential school. In today's Canada, I do not need to go on a length about the profoundly destructive effect this had on the history of this nation's Indigenous peoples far beyond those who personally attended residential school. It is well known. Broken families, broken culture, broken spirit. How is this in any way pertinent to the fact that he fucking paralyzed somebody? Okay, how is it that that group, right, the Indigenous, they don't have to pay for their sins now, but I, because I'm white and Canadian, right, even though I don't come from the settler people of Canada, I'm just an immigrant, but nonetheless, I have to share some kind of sense of guilt or ownership of what happened 200 years ago for something I had no party to. I don't understand how any of this makes sense. Or even the heritage Canadians, like, why would you blame the son for the sins of the father? It makes no fucking sense. Something that happened years ago. I mean, look, the last residential school was closed when? Last residential school in Canada closed when? Because look, I'm not ignorant to the fact that this was recent. Okay, the last one was closed in 1997. Okay, that was only not even 25 years ago, right? 28, soon to be 29. I'm not stupid to that fact. I understand, as I've covered in previous episodes. Canadians are well aware, and if you're not aware, then you just didn't pay attention in class, or you never had any interest in this, which is incredible, right? But you're not going to meet a Canadian, an actual Canadian citizen, that doesn't know about residential schools. We're well aware of what happened. But what does that have to do with you paralyzing somebody? What was it, with a gun? Yeah, he shot and paralyzed a man while on probation for prior violent offenses. Why is that granted leniency and freedom from culpability? And for what? Who does this benefit? Who is actually benefiting from this? What, the youth? The guy that's getting let out lately on a sentence? I don't understand. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this to ourselves? It makes absolutely no fucking sense. You commit a violent crime, you go to prison, you pay a fine, whatever. If a white person commits the crime, or if an Indian person, if a native person, if a black, it doesn't fucking matter. You should get sentenced for the exact same thing. It's just lunacy to think that this is in any way to run a justice system of a country. And I'll say this before moving on to the next case, because there's quite a few of these, as you can tell on the screen. The problem is that when you have an unfair system set up whose means of execution is either at the end of a gun or the inside of a cell, right? The government. Because that's how they enact policy. That's how they force rules on people. At the end of a gun or some bureaucratic enforcement. Right? That either lands you in prison, gets you fines, what have you. That is how the government operates. So that's why it's concerning whenever they pass any of these laws, because at the end of the day, the law is enforced, like I said, at the end of a barrel of a gun, police at your door, regulations, massive fines, what have you. That is how they keep order. And if now you're telling people that if you are part of a different cultural group, a different racial group, you will be given a different type of considerations when it comes to the breaking of laws, the people that are on the outside of that, they're going to look at that and think, oh, so you're not even playing by the same rules. You've completely disregarded any fairness and openness in this process, which could see me either at the end of a gun or in prison or facing, huge fines. One way you're going to fundamentally change my life, potentially, and now I'm under a different set of rules because I'm white, because I'm a man, because I'm whatever, because I'm not part of the minority group towards which you have considerations. Those people are eventually going to start to not play by the rules. And that's how you lose an open trust society. A high trust society, rather. That's how all of it degrades. If you have a rule set and you place people on different lines in regarding that, if you force other people to not have opportunities, not be able to own businesses, not be able to practice their ideals over another people, you're just going to get the out group whipped up, and they're going to start considering how to either change the system fundamentally or extremely, or just burn the whole thing down. Right? Like that's why there's so many youth protesters out these days, Antifa firebombing immigration sites, because these people, they feel cheated. They feel absolutely cheated. They feel backed into a corner. That's why you have those marches in Charlottesville or what have you, with those guys in tiki torches. They feel cheated. And whether or not they're right or they're wrong in their considerations, how extremist their views are, what have you, all this societal strife that we're experiencing is to one way or another, it's related to the fact that people feel cheated. That's why they voted for Trump 3 times. Right? That's why there's all these commentators, because these people feel cheated. And there's, genuine cheated, as in you weren't able to get job opportunities because they were hiring different types of people. You got canceled because of your own personal opinions that have nothing to do with your job. You got your livelihoods destroyed, your address put up on the internet, what have you. Right? There's that kind of cheated. And then there's other people that think, because society isn't communist, that the capitalist system cheated you. They have a warped sense of the world. So fundamentally, that's what I'm getting at. When you have a 2-tier justice system like that, eventually people are going to stop paying attention to the rules, or they're going to want to burn the place down. That's what it leads to on a long enough timeline. If you can't even agree on the basic tenets of the justice system, and some people get preferential treatment over others, the people getting fucked over are not going to tolerate that. They're not. And that's not just with the justice system. That's going to be the immigration system and the economic system, the education system, what have you. Right? And here's more examples why this shit is just plain wrong. Isn't even the word for it. It is. I mean, yeah, I keep going back to this example, but it's exactly like stepping on a rake. We're just hurting ourselves for no fucking reason. Here's another drug trafficking case, where Jamaican immigrant Roosevelt Rush, 32, had pleaded guilty to trafficking after being caught with 55 grams of cocaine at a time when he was supposed to be abiding by the bail conditions resulting from a prior drug charge. Crown prosecutors wanted a 2-year jail sentence, but an October 3rd decision, Ontario Justice R.B. Horton went with 1 year, ruling that Rush, quote, experienced systemic and personal discrimination as a black man, and that this has certainly played a role in his criminality. So, because he faced racism and discrimination, supposedly, right? Like, where are the actual examples? What did he not get a job, and the person that was doing the hiring actually looked at him and said point blank, "I am not hiring you because you're black and I don't work with blacks." Is that actually what happened? Is that what happened? Or are we just generally assuming that because he's black, he must have experienced some kind of racism, some kind of struggle? Because all black people have the same experience. Every single one of them. They're not unique people. They don't come from different cultures. They don't come from different backgrounds. They don't come from different households. All black people are the same. Is that what we're saying? Really? Isn't that just the most racist shit? It's funny. The left will, especially the extreme left, they love to use identities as a shield to hide behind by saying, "Oh, this person can't help it. They were in such and such neighborhood. They have such and such skin color. They have such and like whatever their qualifier is. Oh, they're trans. Oh, they're this. Oh, they're that. Like whatever it is, whatever identity politics they're playing of the day, right? Of the hour, of the minute. They use that as a cover, but it actually implies the most racist statement that you could make, which is, I unironically think that all people of certain groups think the same, and they are a monolith, and they live the same, and they eat the same, and they enjoy the same things, which could not be further from the truth. Like, that could literally not be further from the truth. If you actually got to know a lot of black people, you'd realize a lot of them really don't like the poor black ones. They really don't. They don't like the ghetto culture. They really do not. The moment that black people get money, they move out of the hood. That's what they do immediately. As soon as they're able. And don't take my word for it. There was literally a meme going around when people on Instagram would post what was it? Some kind of music track, something that like somebody was making in the studio, and it just sounded god awful. And the meme was, "Man, we not making it out the hood with this one. We're just not." You think that meme spread just because it was funny? It's because it's fucking true. It's because it's true. It's a cultural signal. Not even a cultural signal. Look at any great movie, whether it's what's it called? Oh, was it that biographical? It's about Compton. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm blanking on this. Straight Outta Compton. Right, Straight Outta Compton, the first thing they do when they get some money is get the fuck out of the hood. Any of those movies, they find a rich house, they move into a rich neighborhood. Yeah, no shit. Who wants to be around endless violence? Who wants to be around endless poverty and crack and fucking whatever? Nobody wants to be around that. And that's the same for any poor racial community. The moment that you get money, you're not living in the trailer park. Okay, you're not living in the motel. You're getting the fuck out of there. That's a normal reaction that everybody has. My financial conditions have improved. I'm able to move out of an area. It only makes sense. People don't choose to live in places that are unsafe. No, it happens to them, or they stay somewhere long enough. Only the desperate actually do that. Anyone with any means is going to be getting out of that fucking neighborhood. So anyways, this idea that people have on the left that, oh, they must all have the same experience. They must all have it so tough. Yeah, sure. Have you never met a suburban black? Have you never met a black person that's not of the inner city? Like, if you actually talk to them, what their experiences are like, what they enjoy, what they believe in, you would be surprised. You would be surprised how many of them are not with it, right? And this court ruling, which is why I bring all of this up, right? Talking about it. Oh, but no, he was a black man. He grew up as a black man. Yeah, he experienced systemic and personal discrimination as a black man just because he's black. Cool. Yeah. Now, every black person has a hate crime committed to them before they're 16. It's kind of like their quinceañera. It's kind of like that. It's like a rite of passage. They get a local cop, or you know what? They shut the whole town down. This is what they do. All right, I know because I've been to one of these. All right, I was lucky enough to go on a ride along. What they do is they when the black kid turns 16, they give him a bottle of Henny and an Uzi to ride around in town, and a big joint to smoke, and they put him in a lowrider, and then they ride him around town. Right? They're like, all right, here you go, man. That's the gas, that's the brake, that's the wheel. Have at her. and they get a cop, not just a cop, but they get a whole outfit, right? They got the whole precinct just patrolling, and all the cops are on the hunt for this low rider. And then the first one that stops it, they just get the shit beat out of them. Just absolute anarchy, right? Gun pull on them, everything. And that's the rite of passage. That's a rite of passage. They have to have a hate crime committed on them before they turn 16. Otherwise, they're not really black. All black people go through the same experience, man. I'm telling you. Every single one of my black friends has told me about this night. You know, kind of like the purge in a lot of ways. It's like an initiation for them. For sure. Yeah, that's every black person goes through the same experience. Fucking Christ. Unbelievable. And this is our judicial system, really? We're ruling based on race? That's great. That's great. Let's see where that gets us. Let's see where that fucking gets us. Here's another case. The name of the accused in this case is not public because he was a minor at the time of the offense, but at age 16, he shot and paralyzed. Oh, that was this one. That was the Ojibwe. Oh, that was in Toronto. Wow. Incredible. And here's the court. Yeah, here's the court reading. Yeah, the same one that I read earlier. Yep, literally the same one. Cool. Oh, here's another one. A child pornographer, rapist, car bomber, and a priest walk into a bar. Could you imagine? Let me read that again for people that didn't get that. Child pornographer, rapist, car bomber, given reduced sentence because of racism. Okay. A child pornographer, rapist, car bomber. I mean, this is just, you can't. I don't even have the words to feign shock here. I can't even make this funny. It's too funny. Like, you know, when you read something too funny, that's just like, it just breaks your brain and you can't laugh because you get it on an innate level. But it's too much happening all at once. So you can't make light of it. Well, that's this story. A Calgary judge knocked 2 years off a 10-year sentence she would have given a man who terrorized and repeatedly sexually assaulted a 12-year-old girl he met when he was 25 because the offender is Indigenous. The man of the Cree heritage on his mother's side, who first met the girl on Instagram, is identified only as RJM in a decision from the Alberta Court of Justice. His victim, who he assaulted and threatened to kill multiple times between the spring of fall 2023, is identified as AB. Quote, the offender repeatedly had sexual intercourse with her, knowing that he held the power in the situation, not only because of their age difference, but also because he had inflicted physical harm on her and psychological terror to ensure that she would comply. And that's what the judge said. Okay, that's what the judge said. RGM's lawyer argued for a 6-year sentence for her client, who also pleaded guilty to leading police on a wild chase before he was arrested in September 2023 and to threatening the girl and her mother once he was locked up to convince her to recant her statement to police. The Crown recommended that the man be sentenced to 10 years, but for his Gladue factors, right, once again, Gladue, that case that was in the Supreme Court, that essentially made it so that racist shit could be considered, not racist shit, racial categories of race would be considered in their ruling, right? And here's the rest of the quote. But for his Gladue factors, I would have imposed the sentence sought by the Crown. Williams said in her decision dated September 15th that sentenced RJM to 8 years in prison. He got 2 years knocked off his sentence of raping a girl at the age of 12, evading police. And now I've yet to read about the bombing. Let's see if we can get to that part. The court also heard he threatened to kill the mother and her cat, specifically telling AB that she was a dead slut and that her mother was going to get hit too. He told her that he would put a bullet in her head and stated there was a bomb in her car would be totaled. A makeshift nail bomb had been placed under his car. She discovered it after she ran over it and it exploded. Are you fucking kidding me? Why is this person only getting 8 years? Forget 10 years. This should be a 30, 40, 50-year sentence. You get to lose a chunk of your life for raping a 12-year-old and fucking planting a car bomb? God, I swear, it's like every time I find a story, it just leads me down further and further into the absolute depravity of some of these people. And like, geez, over time, this is just going to do psychic damage to me. I know it, but my God, this is. I'm not even being shocked for shock's sake. This is the truly revolting person who should not be anywhere near a 12-year-old. They shouldn't be anywhere near people to begin with. I have no words. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. And this person gets 2 years off their sentence. 2 years. Because they're Aboriginal. Aboriginal. Unbelievable. Insane. It's actually insane. 8-year sentence. An 8-year sentence for such a vile act. My God. And this is just a regular occurrence. I mean, for fuck's sake, this is like the third or fourth story that I've read tonight that's like this. And these rulings have been happening ever since 1999. You know, it's one thing if you were softer on Aboriginal people, if they were like, let's say, they found the person that perpetrated those crimes against them or their loved ones and they like assaulted them but didn't kill them, or even if they killed them. No, it still wouldn't feel right if they killed them. But if they like assaulted them to an inch of their life, I would understand the judge being lenient in some circumstances regarding that. If there was actual proof that the person had like molested them or a bunch of the kids in the class or what have you, like if there was a direct cause, or rather direct line of cause and effect between this person going to that school, going to the residential schools, getting taken from their family, and the trauma being shown in their crime. But if their crime literally has nothing to do with residential schools or people that perpetrated that, you know, if there's some relation to it, I can understand maybe the judge having some kind of an opinion, maybe not ruling lightly, but at least saying, okay, I understand. The guy raped you and he's right there and you beat the shit out of him. Right? There have been cases where people, like, let's say in a small town, they find the rapist and one person takes it upon themselves to beat the fuck out of them and the whole town doesn't talk. So the judge has to essentially throw out the case. Like this has happened before, right? Mob justice. I understand that. I understand that human instinct, right? And it's valuable at times, but this is not at all that. What does a 12-year-old girl and her mom have to do with this? You built a bomb and she could have died? That should put you away for almost your entire life. You should get out when you're 80 or 70 as a result of that. How can we allow people to be part of society just 10 years later? What, we expect them to be rehabilitated? Really? in the current prison system being what it is, that's what we're expecting? I wouldn't trust that person to make my food, let alone be anywhere near decent society. I have a hard time understanding how these judges can sit on their post and collect their paychecks and keep making these rulings. It's just it's really confusing to me. I don't, how can you let somebody like that not off the hook, but just be softer on them? How is that in any way an opinion that you can have? I don't know. It's just, it's so far removed from who I am as a person that I can't even fathom it. You know, sometimes you just see people and they have a completely different frame of mind and thinking, and you can't get in their head, and it's inhuman in some ways to think that. I mean, I really don't understand what could lead someone to having this kind of approach to something so vital, something so important to our open trust society, to our communities. I don't know. Words fail me here. I have a really hard time understanding any of this. Oh, and here's another one. Oh, there's a 404. Cool. So apparently an Indian student, 20, drilled a peephole into the bathroom of a group home where he lived, using it to spy on his female housemates for 6 months. He also used the peephole to video record his housemates in various stages of undress. His sentencing decision would consider the immigration consequences of his conviction. It cited several similar cases in which the convicted voyeur was sent to prison for at least 6 months, but the judge gave him 5.5 months in prison, just under the cutoff by which he would become ineligible to obtain permanent residency and possibly Canadian citizenship. Under Canadian immigration law, any criminal offense higher than 6 months would have immediately made him inadmissible. So we're just letting perverts go free because of their immigration status? What the actual fuck? Like, what the actual absolute fuck? Let me see if I can find some news stories on this. Oh, here it is. I guess they just changed the address. Cool. So it's actually real. This is a weird image to use of a peephole. This is a really... Why would he use this image? I don't understand. 5.5 months. Unbelievable. If there was ever a reason for a person to be kicked out of the country, this is it. What, you think he stopped? You think he stopped peeping? You think this really stopped his ambitions? What is it? Is it his culture? Is it proper in his culture to do that? Was that the reason? Oh my god. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. These judges, and I looked this up. They're all appointed. None of them are elected. The only way you can get kicked out is by misconduct. So if there is a bias, if there is something in their behavior that is against their code of conduct, then yeah, you can by all means evict them from that post, right? Or usually they'll resign. But the problem is with most of these judges, they're appointed federally or provincially by the political party, right? By the cabinet, or by certain people in the cabinet. It depends on the position. But the point is that they're all appointed. These are not elected judges, so we can't vote them out. But we can vote in the kind of people that would change this. And I propose to you this. This is something I'm going to be working on. For the next election cycle, whether it's municipal, provincial, federal, what have you, right? Wherever you are in Canada, in the Great White North, wherever you are, I'm going to make a list of demands that echo the demands that other groups have as well, but I want to make a master list and keep track of it. so that when the next election comes, I and whoever else is listening to this can compare what their politicians, right, the people going in their riding, federally, provincially, municipality, what have you, if their ideals actually match this shit list, as it were. And the shit list is going to be simple, right? Immigration, economy, energy policy, just very basic things that will fundamentally alter the way that we advance as a nation, right? Things that we need to be striving towards, mission goals, stated objectives, what have you, whatever name you want to put on them, right? Because we have to get back to nation building. That's the overarching emphasis of this whole podcast, of this whole show, right? That is the idea that we have lost our way and we need to get back to civilization building, not civilization demolishing, not civilization diminishing, civilization building, right? The call to action is we have lost our way, and if we don't get back to our way, we risk losing it for not only our generation of what little time we have left on the planet, but for the next generation, and so on and so forth. And it's going to just degenerate and degenerate further. Whether if we're talking about our immigration policies, our economic policies, the kind of things that we value as a people, the cultural achievements that we have, the scientific achievements that we have, making history. That's what all of this is about, right? That's what's important. To go where no man has gone before, to chart the uncharted, to push the needle. That's what it means to live. That's what this all is for. If we're just asleep by the wheel, we might as well just sign up for MAID. Okay, we might as well just sign up for MAID. And that's not how I want to live. I want to be a part of a great people that does great things, that will be remembered in history, that will be of consequence. Right? As anybody else would. As anybody else that just wants the best for their family, their community, their nation, what have you. Right? That is the mission. And if we keep going on this path of ruling court cases based on people's race, of letting people flood the nation from other countries and cultures that don't share our ideals, that are anti-ethical to our ideals, right? That's not going to get us there. So this shit list is going to be an attempt to embody all these great things that we need to achieve, to become an energy powerhouse, to be an intellectual powerhouse. The amount of engineering students that we have coming out of Waterloo that go to San Francisco to work on these AI companies, right? We have a huge, huge brain drain problem where our smartest, youngest, and brightest are going to the States because they pay more. That's a travesty. We need to reverse that flow. We need to make Canada the most competitive it can be so that we get the best talents. We build the best infrastructure. We build the best. That's what it has to be. Otherwise, what is the point of being mediocre? What's the point of that? Why accept mediocrity? We can be great. And that's not a left wing, that's not a right wing, this is not a political idea, even though a lot of what we talk about on the show is going to be in the realm of the political. But this idea for us to aspire to something greater than ourselves in a transformative way that fundamentally alters how we perceive the world, our place in the world, the good that we can bring to ourselves, to each other, to the greater world. Isn't that what we're here for? Isn't that what we should be aspiring to? The great vision of what's possible? Like I think that's an aspiration worth climbing towards. I think that's something that's actually a good principle to aim towards. And I think a lot of people also share my vision. So that's why I talk about all these issues. Some of them are going to be relevant political, not all, because politics does make up a huge chunk of it, right? Of nation building. That's what we're about. But that's ultimately all I want. It doesn't come from a place of hate. Doesn't come from a place of just blind racism. No, it's not about that. It's about supporting policies that are Canada first. So when I create this shit list, that's what it's going to follow. And it'll be a good guide for people to look into so that when they have an election coming up, they can see, okay, is my politician actually supporting these ideas? Do they want to see Canada grow? Do they want to see Canada improve? Do they want to see an end to two-tier justice system? Right? All these things that affect each and every one of us. You know, right now it's these groups that are getting benefits. Wait till there's enough of another group to come in and they start running things. What are they going to do about everyone else that doesn't fit into their group? Right? This only degenerates further and further and further into the absolute dredges of humanity. That's where this goes if we let it. And I refuse. I refuse. I will not black pill. I will not give up. And neither should you. Neither should you. And look, just to end off this episode here, I'm not trying to say that you should be LARPing as an e-conservative or an e-anything, e-Catholic, e-what have you, and just posting deport. No. Look within yourself, first and foremost, to see what you can do, not just in your community, but start by doing the basic things like I mentioned in the last episode. Clean your room. Work a decent job. Learn another language. Go to the gym. Improve yourself. Amass influence. Work in these institutions and understand how they work. Understand how the people work. Build your network. Become a person of influence. So that when the time comes that you're able to be in a position to enact that change, you not only have the willpower to do it, but you have the capabilities to do it. To help build a greater Canada. Whether that means investing in a business, whether that means working in the government, what have you. Right? Because all these things that we're talking about, it doesn't just change overnight. It doesn't just change because enough people like a post. This changes because people get into positions of power and they start to shift the tides. That's how it's always been. And right now, it's just the ideology that's winning, it's not the right one. It really isn't. It doesn't have the heart of the people. It doesn't have the soul of the people. It's not about building. It's about selling off and destroying whatever is not sold off. So become influential, first and foremost. Right? Build yourself as individuals. That's what we all have to do. Build a base. And from there, everything else. So when I say all this, it's not to be a political commentator. It's not to speak some half-truths or be a shill or what have you. There are plenty of much smarter political commentators that will serve you well if that's the content that you're going for. All right, there's much more smarter people than I. Many more smarter people than I in this realm. And that's not to diminish what I'm saying, that I'm dumb or ignorant to this. But that is to say that if you're looking for that kind of analysis, there's plenty of content elsewhere. This show is more about taking practical steps and what we can actually do to change this. Right, to fundamentally alter this. Awareness is a big part of it because a lot of this stuff goes unreported. The average Canadian does not know that this stuff happens. Right, and all the stuff that I'm talking on the show, even though, like I said, I've shown my receipts. I've linked everything, whether it's to news stories or official government sources. Right, awareness is a big part of it, but beyond that, we actually have to make a change. So as part of that, I'm going to be working on a list and a bunch of other political tools that can be used in the upcoming elections because we got to think different. We got to make something different. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the point of all this? Just to watch the fucking sports ball and talk about whatever slop is on Netflix and to vote for the same party year in, year out? No. No. We're done with that. We're done with that. We're not going to be sedated and we're not going to back down. And so with that, I will end off the show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I appreciate every single one of you if you've made it this far. As always, the best way to support the stream, uno momento por favor, if you go to bio.link/whitepill, I will have all my links there, all the socials, all the feeds where this stuff is uploaded. If you want to really support the stream, don't feel obligated to, but if you want to do something besides liking, commenting, subscribing, you can do that via PayPal. Send donations. You can have a message sent with a donation, which I'll read at the end of every stream. But as always, just watching the content is enough for me. Participating in it is enough for me. So once again, I thank each and every one of you for tuning in tonight. I don't know if I'm going to be doing a stream on Christmas, but we'll see. We'll see about that. And yeah, thank you for tuning into the Whitepill. I will see you guys Friday, if anything. If not, then sometime next week. Take care.